In August 2024, global markets lost $3 trillion in a single trading session. The Nikkei crashed 12.4% in one day, its worst collapse since 1987. American investors watched their portfolios evaporate overnight. It wasn't a corporate scandal that triggered the carnage. It wasn't a banking failure, and it wasn't even a war. It was a quarter-point interest rate hike by the Bank of Japan, a central bank most Americans had never heard of, in an economy smaller than California's. The liquidation was so violent that circuit breakers tripped across Asian markets. High-frequency trading algorithms went haywire, and hedge funds received margin calls they couldn't meet. And when the dust settled, financial analysts discovered something terrifying. The August crash wasn't the main event, it was a preview. And right now, the exact same pattern is unfolding. In exactly 48 hours on February 9th, the Bank of Japan will announce its next policy decision. What happens in that announcement could determine whether your retirement account survives 2025. This wasn't luck, this wasn't coincidence. Former Federal Reserve economist Dr. Raghuram Rajan identified a three-stage pattern that appears before every modern financial crisis. He called it the hidden leverage unwind, a mathematical sequence where invisible debt chains, built during years of easy money, suddenly snap when monetary policy normalizes. Let me show you how it works. Stage one is the carry trade buildup. During extended periods of ultra-low interest rates in one major economy, sophisticated investors exploit the rate differential by borrowing massive amounts in the cheap currency, converting it to a stronger currency, and investing in higher-yielding assets. The trade seems risk-free because the interest rate gap generates automatic profits. Leverage multiplies, and banks don't classify it as dangerous because it's technically hedged, but the hedges only work in normal conditions. Stage two is the policy divergence. The low-rate central bank begins tightening monetary policy, while other central banks maintain higher rates. The interest rate gap narrows, and the carry trade becomes less profitable. But the vast majority of investors stay in because the trade has worked for years, sometimes decades, and they can't imagine it failing. Stage three is the liquidation cascade. The low-rate central bank raises rates faster than expected, or by a larger amount, and suddenly the carry trade goes negative. Investors who borrowed in the cheap currency now face rising interest costs and a strengthening currency that makes repayment more expensive. Forced liquidations begin, and as assets get sold to repay loans, prices fall. Falling prices trigger more margin calls force more selling, and the cascade feeds itself. The pattern is mathematical. Once stage three begins, the unwind is automatic. Human decision-making becomes irrelevant. Algorithms and margin requirements drive the selling, and every time this pattern has completed, the result has been the same: financial devastation that ripples across global markets. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, and right now, we're watching the rhyme scheme complete itself in real time. The carry trade pattern has destroyed markets repeatedly over the past 4 decades. Each time, the mechanics were identical, and each time, most investors were blindsided. In 1987, the dollar carry trade collapsed. Throughout 1985-1986, the US dollar was intentionally weakened through the Plaza Accord, and investors borrowed dollars at relatively low rates and invested in higher-yielding Japanese assets. The trade was enormous. According to Bank for International Settlements data, cross-border dollar lending grew by $420 billion just 18 months. In early 1987, the Federal Reserve began raising rates to fight inflation. The Louvre Accord attempted to stabilize currencies, but market participants ignored the warning signs. The dollar began strengthening, the interest rate differential narrowed, and smart money started exiting. October 19th, 1987 arrived. The dollar surged, currency hedges failed, and portfolio insurance algorithms triggered automatic selling. The Dow Jones collapsed 22.6% in a single day, still the largest one-day percentage decline in history. Over $500 billion in market value evaporated as the crash started in Hong Kong, spread to Europe, then devastated Wall Street. Why? Because the carry trade linking dollar borrowing to global equity purchases unwound all at once. Markets took 2 years to fully recover, thousands of investors were wiped out, but the lesson wasn't learned. In 1998, the Russian ruble crisis and long-term capital management collapse followed the same pattern. After the Soviet collapse, Russian government bonds offered yields of 40-60%, while the dollar could be borrowed at 5-6%. Hedge funds, led by long-term capital management, whose partners included 2 Nobel Prize winners, built massive leverage positions. They borrowed dollars and yen, bought Russian debt, and used mathematical models claiming the trade was statistically safe. LTCM alone held positions worth over $125 trillion on just $4.8 billion in capital, leverage of 260 to 1. In early 1998, oil prices collapsed and Russia's economy depended on oil exports. The Russian ruble began weakening. LTCM's model said this was normal volatility, so they added to their positions while the Federal Reserve started raising rates in March 1998, making dollar borrowing more expensive. August 17, 1998 changed everything. Russia defaulted on its debt and devalued the ruble. The currency carry trades imploded simultaneously, and LTCM's safe hedges failed. The fund lost $4.6 billion in 4 months. But the real danger was contagion. LTCM's counterparties included every major Wall Street bank, and the Federal Reserve orchestrated a $3.6 billion bailout to prevent systemic collapse. LTCM was liquidated, markets crashed, credit spreads blew out, and the S&P 500 fell 19% from July to October. Yet the pattern appeared again. The 2008 crisis proved the pattern's power once more. From 2001 to 2007, the Bank of Japan held interest rates at 0, while the Federal Reserve held rates at 1% in 2003, 2004, then gradually raised to 5.25% by 2006. The interest rate differential was massive and stable. Investors borrowed yen at 0, converted to dollars, and bought U.S. real estate, mortgage-backed securities, and stocks. According to the Bank for International Settlements, the yen carry trade reached an estimated $1 trillion by 2007. It became the hidden engine of the housing bubble. In 2006-2007, the Bank of Japan began raising rates from 0 to 0.5%. The rate increases were tiny, just 0.25% at a time. The Fed had stopped raising rates and was holding steady, but the interest rate gap was narrowing. Hedge funds began unwinding yen carry positions. This removed liquidity from U.S. markets at exactly the wrong time, just as subprime mortgages started defaulting. July 2007 marked the beginning of the end. Two Bear Stearns hedge funds collapsed due to subprime exposure, credit markets froze, and investors rushed to unwind carry trades. The yen surged 30% against the dollar from 124 in June 2007 to 87 by December 2008. Every yen borrowed had to be repaid with dollars that were now 30% more expensive, and forced asset sales accelerated. Lehman Brothers collapsed in September 2008. According to the International Monetary Fund, the carry trade unwind amplified the financial crisis by draining $800 billion in liquidity from global markets. The outcome was catastrophic, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. $19.2 trillion in household wealth evaporated in the United States alone. 8 million Americans lost their jobs, and the S&P 500 fell 57% from peak to trough. Global GDP contracted by 5.1% in 2009. The first global recession since World War II. The pattern repeated in 2008, history repeated in August 2024, and now it's loading again. For the past 15 years, the Bank of Japan maintained negative interest rates and unlimited quantitative easing. Total Japanese monetary base exceeded $700 trillion, roughly $5 trillion, while U.S. rates reached 5.5%. The interest rate gap was 9 percentage points at its peak. The yen carry trade rebuilt itself, larger than ever before, with estimates suggesting $4.5 trillion in global carry trade positions by early 2024. In March 2024, the Bank of Japan ended negative rates for the first time in 17 years. Markets barely reacted because the rate increase was tiny, from 0.1% to 0%. In July, the BOJ raised again to 0.25%. Still, most investors held their positions because they'd been profiting from this trade for over a decade. July 31st, 2024 was the trigger date. The Bank of Japan announced it would raise rates and reduce bond purchases more aggressively than expected. And the announcement came after U.S. markets closed. Asian markets opened to chaos. The yen surged from 161 per dollar to 141 in just 5 days. Carry trade positions went underwater immediately. And on August 5th, the Nikkei crashed 12.4%. The S&P 500 fell 3% in one day, erasing $1.9 trillion in value. Bitcoin plummeted 15%, and the volatility index spiked to 65, the highest since March 2020. Markets recovered, but only because the Bank of Japan immediately signaled it would slow rate increases. Deputy Governor Shinichi Uchida gave a speech on August 7th, explicitly calming markets with the translation being, "Don't worry, we won't crash the system." The BOJ blinked, the carry trade stabilized, and investors who had started unwinding rushed back in. But here's what nobody is telling you. The August crash was a warning shot, not the main event. The positions rebuilt, the leverage returned, and the Bank of Japan's credibility problem got worse, not better. Now here's where it gets disturbing. Every single stage of this pattern is present today, and the stakes are exponentially higher than 2 and 8. The parallels are mathematical. Stage 1 is complete. The yen carry trade is fully rebuilt after the August scare, and current positioning data from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission shows net short yen positions have returned to pre-August levels. The interest rate differential between U.S. Treasuries at 4.5% and Japanese government bonds at 1.2% remains enormous, Investors are once again borrowing yen at near zero rates, converting to dollars, and buying U.S. equities, real estate, and crypto. Stage 2 is accelerating. Right now, as I'm recording this, inflation in Japan is running at 3.6%, the highest in 40 years, which is catastrophic for a country that spent 30 years fighting deflation. Japanese wages are rising at 5.1%, the fastest pace since 1992. The Bank of Japan's own projections show inflation staying above its 2% target through 2026, and political pressure on Governor Kazuo Ueda is mounting. Japan's government debt stands at 240% of GDP, $9.2 trillion in total. The BOJ cannot afford to let inflation run hot, so they must raise rates. But here's the trap. Japan is also the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury bonds. Japanese investors own $1.13 trillion in U.S. government debt. If Japanese interest rates rise, Japanese government bonds become more attractive relative to U.S. Treasuries, and Japanese investors will sell U.S. bonds and bring capital home. When they sell U.S. Treasuries, yields rise, and higher yields mean falling bond prices. Falling bond prices trigger margin calls on leveraged positions, and those margin calls force selling in stocks, real estate, and risk assets across the board. The same signals that preceded the August crash are present again, but now they're stronger. In 48 hours, on February 9th, the Bank of Japan will announce its policy decision, and 3 scenarios are possible. Scenario 1. The BOJ holds rates at 0.25%. Markets breathe a sigh of relief, the yen weakens, and the carry trade continues. Risk assets rally temporarily, but inflation continues rising. The problem gets worse, and the inevitable is merely delayed. Probability 20%. Scenario 2. The BOJ raises rates by 0.25% to 0.5%. This is the middle path. Markets initially sell off as carry trade positions adjust, the yen strengthens moderately, and volatility spikes for several weeks. Eventually, markets stabilize as participants accept the new rate environment. This is the most likely scenario, probability 60%. Scenario 3. The BOJ raises rates by 0.5% or more to 0.75% or 1.0%. This is the nuclear option. The yen surges, the carry trade implodes, and global liquidation begins. The Nikkei crashes 15-20%, the S&P 500 falls 10% or more. Credit spreads blow out, margin calls cascade, and Bitcoin collapses below $70,000. The volatility matches or exceeds August 5th, probability 20%. But here's what makes scenario 3 genuinely possible. Governor Ueda has shown he's willing to shock markets. He did it in July, and he didn't back down until after the August crash. His mandate is price stability in Japan, not propping up American stock portfolios. And current Japanese leadership is more nationalistic, more focused on domestic concerns than at any time in the post-war era. The trigger event in 1987 was unexpected. The trigger in 1998 was unexpected. And the trigger in 2008 caught even the Federal Reserve by surprise. Maker, and we're just waiting for the announcement. Here's what happens if the Bank of Japan chooses scenario 3 on February 9th. Within 24 hours, the yen surges 10 and 15% against the dollar. Carry trade positions worth trillions of dollars go underwater simultaneously, and hedge funds receive margin calls they cannot meet. Forced liquidations begin in Tokyo, spread to European markets, and hit Wall Street when U.S. markets open. Within 1 week, the S&P 500 falls 12-15% from current levels. That's roughly 6,000 down to 5,100, erasing $4.5 trillion in market value. Treasury yields spike as Japanese investors dump U.S. bonds. The 10-year yield jumps from 4.5% to 5.2% or higher. Credit markets seize, corporate borrowing costs explode, and real estate transactions freeze as mortgage rates surge back toward 8%. Within 1 month, the contagion spreads to emerging markets. Countries that relied on yen, carry trade financing, face capital flight, and currencies collapse in Turkey, Brazil, and Indonesia. A minimum of 3 mid-sized hedge funds fail. At least one major investment bank requires emergency liquidity assistance, and the Federal Reserve is forced to cut interest rates in an emergency meeting and restart quantitative easing to prevent systemic collapse. The timeline is 2025 and 2027 for full resolution. Even if the BOJ chooses scenario 2, the moderate path, volatility remains extreme throughout 2025, and markets face recurring scares every time the BOJ meets. The carry trade unwind happens slowly instead of catastrophically, but it still happens. U.S. equities face sustained headwinds, and your 401k spends 2 years going nowhere or declining. The people who got destroyed in 2008 weren't stupid. They were unprepared. They believed central banks would protect them, assumed leverage was safe because it had worked for years, and ignored the warning signs until forced liquidations made their decisions for them. Nobody warned them adequately, and nobody will warn you either. Financial media will call this unexpected when it happens. Regulators will claim, nobody could have predicted it, but the pattern is clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and the timeline is immediate. This is educational content, not financial advice, but the historical pattern is undeniable. Every time a major carry trade has unwound, it has devastated unprepared investors. And the August 5th crash was a practice run. The main event is still ahead. What can you do? Reduce exposure to highly leveraged assets, diversify away from U.S. equities toward international positions and hard assets, and watch the yen. If it suddenly surges, that's your signal to exit risk assets immediately. Consider precious metals as insurance against currency debasement and financial system stress. Gold and silver have held value through every historical crisis in this pattern. The Bank of Japan meets in 48 hours. The decision will be announced Sunday, February 9th at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. And when you wake up Monday morning, you'll know which scenario we're in. If it's scenario 3, the markets will already be crashing in Asia. By the time Wall Street opens, it will be too late to protect yourself. This video is for educational and historical purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. All investment decisions should be made in consultation with a qualified financial advisor. Historical patterns do not guarantee future results.